Number 10. Keeping conversations surface level only.
You might talk a lot, laugh easily, and seem socially open, yet nothing you say ever truly lands anywhere deep. The conversation stays safe, polished, and emotionally neutral, like small talk stretched across years. This habit isn't about being boring or unintelligent, it's a quiet defense mechanism. Surface-level conversation allows connection without exposure. You can be present without being seen. Weather, work, jokes, trends, random opinions. These topics create motion without vulnerability, giving the illusion of closeness while protecting your inner world from risk. When emotions begin to surface, something inside you subtly redirects. You change tone, shift topics, or add casual commentary to dilute the moment, not because you don't feel deeply, but because depth feels dangerous. True intimacy requires allowing another person to witness your uncertainty, your contradictions, and your emotional needs. Staying shallow keeps you in control. No one can reject what they never truly touch. Over time, this pattern becomes automatic. You may even convince yourself that deep talk is unnecessary or that feelings complicate things. But the real cost is loneliness disguised as independence. People may describe you as friendly, easygoing, or fun, yet strangely hard to know. Relationships stall, not from lack of opportunity, but from lack of emotional access. The tragedy is that surface-level communication doesn't protect you from pain, it only delays it. It replaces the risk of being hurt with the certainty of never being fully understood. And the moment you notice that your conversations never leave the surface is often the first moment you realize what you've been avoiding isn't others, but the vulnerability required to truly be close.
Number 9. Avoiding eye contact during emotional talks.
Eye contact is one of the most intimate, unguarded forms of human connection. It exposes emotion before words ever do. When conversations turn emotional and your eyes instinctively look away, down, or toward anything else in the room, it's rarely accidental. This habit is not about shyness or distraction, it's about self-protection. Holding eye contact during vulnerable moments feels like standing emotionally naked in front of someone with nowhere to hide. Looking away gives you distance. It breaks the emotional circuit. Without eye contact, feelings feel less real, less intense, less binding. You can talk about serious things while keeping your inner self at a safe remove. But deep down, you're avoiding the moment where the other person might truly see you. Your fear, longing, uncertainty, or need. Eye contact creates mutual witnessing, and that level of presence can feel overwhelming if intimacy has ever felt unsafe. Often this habit forms early. Maybe emotional moments once led to judgment, dismissal, or loss. Your nervous system learned that connection equals risk. So now, even with people you trust, your body subtly disengages at the exact moment closeness could form. You may still listen, you may still respond thoughtfully, but your eyes withdraw, creating an invisible wall that words alone cannot cross. The cost is subtle but profound. Emotional conversations feel incomplete, as if something essential never fully lands. Others may sense your distance without knowing why. You appear guarded, unreadable, or emotionally unavailable, even when you care deeply. Avoiding eye contact doesn't stop vulnerability from existing. It only keeps it unshared, and intimacy cannot grow in spaces where emotional presence keeps slipping away at the moment it matters most.
Number 8. Distracting with humor when things get serious.
Humor is charming, disarming, and socially rewarded. It makes people like you quickly. But when jokes appear the moment a conversation turns heavy, they often serve a hidden purpose. Laughter becomes a smokescreen. It breaks emotional tension just before it can deepen. You turn seriousness into entertainment, pain into punchlines, and vulnerability into something safely dismissible. Everyone laughs, but nothing real gets addressed. This habit usually feels harmless, even positive. You tell yourself you're keeping things light or not making it awkward. In reality, humor is being used as an emotional escape hatch. When feelings rise, your nervous system senses exposure, and a joke restores control. It shifts attention away from what you're feeling and back toward performance. You're no longer present, you're entertaining. Over time, people learn not to go deep with you, not because you aren't capable of depth, but because every serious moment dissolves into irony, sarcasm, or playful deflection. Emotional weight never has time to settle. Conversations skim past truth without ever touching it. You may be admired for your wit, yet quietly misunderstood at your core. This pattern often develops in environments where emotions weren't welcomed, but humor was. If seriousness once led to discomfort, conflict, or rejection, joking became the safer language. But intimacy requires staying with discomfort long enough for meaning to emerge. Humor, when used too quickly, robs moments of their transformative power. The cruel irony is that the very tool you use to connect, humor, can become the barrier that keeps you unseen. Laughter fills the space where closeness could have formed, leaving relationships pleasant, lively, and emotionally hollow. And one day you may realize people enjoy you deeply, but know you only from the outside.
Number 7. Changing topics when feelings come up.
The moment emotions enter a conversation, your mind searches for an exit. You smoothly redirect, introduce a new subject, or respond in a way that subtly closes the emotional door. It's not abrupt enough to seem rude. In fact, it often feels natural, even considerate. But this reflex reveals a deeper fear. Emotions threaten the structure you rely on to feel safe. Changing topics is a way of regaining control. Feelings are unpredictable. They demand presence, honesty, and emotional responsibility. By shifting the conversation, you prevent vulnerability from taking shape. You avoid the risk of saying too much, feeling too much, or being asked to respond emotionally when you're not prepared to. The conversation continues, but the truth quietly exits. This habit is often learned in environments where emotional expression led to consequences. Maybe feelings were ignored, minimized, or used against you. Over time, your system learned that staying emotionally neutral was safer than being real. So now, even in healthy relationships, your instincts pull you away from depth the moment it approaches. Others may sense this withdrawal. They open up, only to feel subtly redirected. Over time, they stop trying. Emotional bids go unanswered, not through rejection, but through redirection. Relationships remain functional, polite, and stable, but emotionally thin. The real loss isn't conflict avoided, it's connection never formed. Changing topics doesn't erase feelings, it only postpones them, storing emotional truth in places where it can't be resolved. Intimacy requires staying with discomfort long enough for understanding to grow. And when every emotional doorway quietly closes, closeness never gets the chance to enter.
Number 6. Overfocusing on flaws in potential partners.
At first, it feels like discernment. You notice red flags early, analyze behavior deeply, and convince yourself you're simply being realistic. But when every potential partner is disqualified by minor imperfections, something else is at work. This habit isn't about high standards, it's about keeping emotional distance without having to admit fear. By magnifying flaws, you create a logical excuse to avoid closeness before it can become emotionally demanding. Focusing on flaws gives you a sense of control. Instead of risking attachment, you stay in evaluation mode. You observe, judge, and mentally step back. This keeps you safe from the uncertainty of intimacy, where outcomes can't be predicted or managed. As long as the other person is not quite right, you never have to fully show up. Often this pattern hides a deeper belief that closeness inevitably leads to disappointment, loss, or entrapment. By finding faults, you preemptively protect yourself from future pain. You leave before vulnerability can form, telling yourself it was a rational decision. Yet, beneath the logic is avoidance. Over time, this creates a cycle of near connections that never deepen. You meet people, feel sparks, then slowly dismantle the possibility by collecting reasons why it wouldn't work. Others may sense your emotional distance, feeling evaluated rather than accepted. Relationships begin and end before they truly begin. The irony is painful. You long for connection, yet sabotage it at the threshold. Perfection becomes a shield, not a goal. Real intimacy requires tolerating imperfection, both in others and in yourself. When flaws become deal breakers by default, what you're really avoiding isn't the wrong partner, but the vulnerability required to truly let someone in.
Number 5. Avoiding commitment despite wanting closeness.
You crave connection, affection, and emotional safety, yet the moment commitment appears, something inside you resists. This contradiction is confusing even to you. You want closeness, but not the permanence that comes with it. Avoiding commitment becomes a way to enjoy intimacy in fragments, enough to feel connected, but never enough to feel trapped or fully exposed. Commitment demands consistency. It asks you to stay present even when feelings fluctuate, when novelty fades, or when conflict arises. For someone afraid of true intimacy, this feels like losing control. Commitment means being emotionally accountable, seen over time, and known beyond your best moments. By keeping relationships undefined, you preserve an escape route. Often this pattern forms when closeness once came with loss or pain. Your system learned that attachment equals vulnerability, and vulnerability equals danger. So now, you negotiate closeness on your own terms, deep talks without labels, affection without promises, connection without roots. It feels safer, but it's also unstable. Partners may feel confused, pulled close, and pushed away simultaneously. They sense your warmth, then your distance. Over time, this inconsistency erodes trust, not because you don't care, but because you're protecting yourself. Relationships linger in a gray zone where neither person feels secure. The hidden cost is emotional exhaustion. Avoiding commitment doesn't eliminate fear, it keeps it alive. True closeness requires choosing to stay even when fear surfaces. Until that choice is made, intimacy remains conditional, desired but never fully allowed to take shape.
Number 4. Overworking to dodge relationships.
Being busy looks admirable. You're productive, focused, and constantly moving toward goals. But when work consumes every emotional and physical resource you have, it often serves a quieter purpose. Overworking becomes a socially acceptable way to avoid intimacy. No one questions absence when it's labeled ambition. No one challenges emotional unavailability when you're just overwhelmed. Work provides structure, rules, and measurable success. Relationships do not. Intimacy is messy, unpredictable, and emotionally demanding. By filling your schedule completely, you eliminate the space where closeness could grow. There's no time for vulnerability, no energy for emotional presence, no room for someone else's needs. This habit often forms when relationships once felt unsafe or distracting. Work becomes the place where you feel competent and in control. Emotions, by contrast, feel chaotic, so you invest in what you can manage. You may tell yourself that relationships can wait, that things will change after this phase, but the phase keeps extending. Others may admire your dedication, yet feel slowly shut out. Invitations are declined, messages go unanswered. Emotional availability fades behind deadlines and fatigue. Over time, loneliness sets in, not from lack of people, but from lack of shared emotional space. The danger of overworking isn't burnout alone. It's the gradual replacement of human connection with productivity. Achievement fills the hours, but not the deeper need to be known. When work becomes a shield, it protects you from vulnerability while quietly costing you the intimacy you claim to want.
Number 3. Sharing everything online but nothing in person.
You appear open, expressive, even vulnerable, just not face to face. Online, you share thoughts, feelings, experiences, and struggles with ease. But in real-life conversations, you stay guarded, careful, and emotionally minimal. This habit creates a powerful illusion of openness while keeping true intimacy at a distance. Digital sharing feels safe because it offers control without exposure. Online, you decide what to reveal, when to reveal it, and how it's received. There's distance, filters, and the option to disengage at any moment. In-person vulnerability doesn't offer that luxury. It involves tone, pauses, eye contact, and emotional reciprocity. It asks you to respond in real time. For someone afraid of intimacy, that immediacy feels overwhelming. This pattern often develops when real-life emotional expression once felt risky. Online spaces become a substitute for connection without confrontation. You receive validation without the unpredictability of emotional closeness. But something essential is missing. Being known by someone who can actually respond to you, challenge you, and stay present. People in your life may feel confused. They see depth online but distance in person. They know about you, yet don't feel close to you. Over time, this creates emotional disconnect, where your inner world feels broadcast but never shared. The irony is sharp. You're expressing yourself constantly, yet rarely feeling understood. Digital vulnerability without real-world intimacy becomes another form of emotional avoidance. True closeness doesn't happen in posts or messages. It happens in shared presence, where there's no screen to hide behind.
Number 2. Keeping multiple walls or personas with people.
You adjust who you are depending on who you're with. One version for work, another for friends, another for family, and yet another for romance. On the surface, this looks like social intelligence, but when these personas are rigid and guarded, they function as emotional walls. No single person ever gets access to your full self, which keeps true intimacy safely out of reach. Maintaining multiple personas allows you to control perception. Each version reveals only what feels safe in that context. You manage reactions, avoid judgment, and prevent anyone from seeing your contradictions or vulnerabilities. But intimacy requires integration, being the same person across emotional spaces, even when it feels risky. This habit often forms when being fully yourself once led to rejection or misunderstanding. Fragmenting your identity became a survival strategy. Over time, it feels normal. You may even forget which parts you've shown to whom. But the cost is disconnection, not just from others, but from yourself. People sense this fragmentation. They may feel close to you in one setting, yet strangely distant in another. Relationships lack depth because no shared emotional reality exists. You're present, but not fully. The deepest consequence is exhaustion. Holding up walls requires constant emotional management. True closeness doesn't demand performance. It asks for consistency. Until someone is allowed to see your whole, unedited self, intimacy remains impossible. Walls may keep you safe, but they also keep you alone.
Number 1. Ending relationships at the first sign of depth.
The moment a relationship starts to deepen, something shifts. Conversations become more meaningful, emotions more present, expectations more real, and suddenly you feel the urge to leave. You tell yourself it's a loss of interest, bad timing, or a gut feeling. But ending relationships right as depth appears is often not intuition. It's fear responding to intimacy before it fully forms. Depth removes anonymity. It means being seen over time, not just at your best, but in your confusion, insecurity, and emotional need. For someone afraid of true intimacy, this feels like standing at the edge of exposure. Ending the relationship restores safety. You regain control before attachment can take root. This pattern can be subtle. You may start noticing flaws, feeling restless, or convincing yourself the connection isn't right. The timing is the clue. The exit happens not when things are bad, but when they're becoming real. Emotional closeness triggers the same alarm system that once protected you from pain. To others, this feels abrupt and confusing. They sensed something growing only to watch it vanish. Over time, you may collect a trail of almost relationships, connections with strong beginnings and sudden endings. Each one reinforces the belief that depth never lasts. The tragedy is that leaving early prevents the very pain you fear, but also the intimacy you want. You never stay long enough to learn that closeness can survive discomfort. Ending relationships at the first sign of depth doesn't mean you don't want love. It means love feels too dangerous to remain inside once it stops being hypothetical.